very profound, subtle and inconceivable. If all beings together do not succeed in cognizing them, how then could a single person claim to cognize them all? It is as though one wanted to measure the earth, count the drops of water in the ocean, weigh Mount Sumeru, know the limits of space and other similar things, likewise unknowable. How can all dharmas be known in all their aspects? Answer. The darkness of ignorance is very painful, and the brilliance of wisdom is very blissful. Now all beings try to avoid suffering and seek only happiness. This is why the Bodhisattvas wish above all to have great wisdom and wish to know all dharmas from every point of view. The Bodhisattvas who have produced the great mind seek great wisdom in the interest of all beings. This is why they wish to know all dharmas in all their aspects. If a physician takes care of one or two sick people, it is enough for him to use one or two remedies. But if he wishes to cure all beings who are sick, he has to use all the types of remedies. In the same way, the Bodhisattva who wishes to save all beings wishes to know all dharmas in all their aspects, and since the dharmas are profound, subtle and innumerable, the wisdom of the Bodhisattva, it too, will be profound, subtle and immense. Above, in replying to attacks directed against the Omniscient One, we have already treated the subject fully. There we commented that if the letter is big, the envelope also will be big. Furthermore, if all dharmas are examined unsystematically, nothing will be found. But if the search is methodical, the results will be faultless. In the same way, if in order to produce fire by friction, Irani is used, fire is the result. But if one tries to make fire with damp wood, the fire will not catch. Similarly also, the great earth has limits. But, if one is not omniscient and one does not have great miraculous power, one will not know them. On the other hand, if the power of the superknowledges is great, one knows that the Trisahasramahasahasralokadhatu is the limit of the earth, that this great earth rests on the circle of diamond, and that at the four sides of the Trisahasramahasahasralokadhatu there is space. This is knowing the limits of the earth. And it is the same when one wishes to weigh Mount Sumeru. As for wishing to measure space, that is out of the question, for the question does not come up. Space not being a dharma, there can be no question of measuring it. VII. Why does Sariputra question? Sutra. Sariputra said to the Buddha, Bhagavat, how must the Bodhisattva Mahasattva who wishes to know all the dharmas in all the aspects exert himself in practicing the prajnaparamita? Sastra. Question. The Buddha, who wanted to preach the prajnaparamita, manifested all kinds of miracles. Having manifested them, he ought to speak. Why was he questioned by Sariputra first and then speaks? Answer. 1. Because the answer comes after the question. It must be so in the Buddhist texts as everywhere else. 2. Furthermore, Sariputra knows that the prajnaparamita is profound and subtle, and that this doctrine without characteristics is difficult to understand and difficult to know. By the power of his knowledge, he meditates on it in various ways. He wonders if contemplating impermanence of dharmas is indeed prajnaparamita. But he is unable to decide by himself. This is why he asks. 3. Finally, Sariputra is not omniscient. In wisdom, he is but a little child compared to the Buddha. Avadana of the pigeon. Thus it is told in the Apotanena King. The Buddha was in the Jetavana. Toward evening, he started out with Sariputra walking behind him. At that moment a hawk was chasing a pigeon. The pigeon fell in front of the Buddha. When the Buddha, continuing his walk, came abreast of it and his shadow covered the pigeon, the bird became calm, its fears disappeared and it stopped crying. Later, when Sariputra's shadow covered the pigeon, it began to cry and tremble again. Sariputra asked the Buddha, "The Buddha and myself are both free of the three poisons. Why does the pigeon stop its fear and crying when the Buddha's shadow covers it and begin to tremble and cry when my shadow covers it?" The Buddha said, "In you the impregnations of the threefold poison are not yet destroyed. That is why, when your shadow covers it, the pigeon's fears do not disappear. Examine the avadanas of the pigeon in its previous existences. For how many lifetimes has it been a pigeon? Then Sariputra entered into the concentration of knowledge which has as its object previous existences, and saw that the pigeon had always been a pigeon for 1, 2, 3 lifetimes and so on, for 80,000 great kalpas. But beyond that, he stopped and could see no further. Having come out of the concentration, Sariputra said to the Buddha, "This pigeon has always been a pigeon for 80,000 great kalpas, but beyond that, I do not know." The Buddha continued, "If you cannot know to the very end of past existences, try then to see after how many future existences the pigeon will escape from its animal destiny." Sariputra then entered into the concentration of the knowledge that has as its object aspirations, and he saw that this pigeon would not escape its destiny as a pigeon for 1, 2, 3 existences, and so on for 80,000 great kalpas. But beyond that, he stopped and could see no further. Having come out of the concentration, he said to the Buddha, "I see that this pigeon will not escape from its destiny as a pigeon for 1, 2, 3 existences, and so on for 80,000 great kalpas. But beyond that I know no further. I do not know the limits of the past and the future. I do not know when this pigeon will escape from its animal destiny." The Buddha said to Sariputra, "The existences of this pigeon surpass the limits knowable by sravakas and pratyekabuddhas. This pigeon will constantly have pigeon existences for great kalpas as numerous as the grains of sand of the Ganges. When its sin has been expiated, it will come out and will transmigrate in the 5 destinies. Then it will be a human, and at the end of 500 human existences, it will acquire keen faculties. At that time there will be a Buddha who, having saved innumerable and incalculable beings, will enter into nirvana without residue, but his spiritual legacy will remain in the world, and a man will become a lay adherent observing the 5 precepts." Hearing a bhiksu praise the qualities of the Buddha, he will first produce the mind of bodhicitta, then make the aspiration to become a Buddha. Then for 3 incalculable periods, he will practice the 6 virtues. Finally, when he has attained the 10th bhumi, he will become Buddha, and after having saved innumerable beings, he will enter into nirvana without residue. Then, Sariputra made his confession before the Buddha and said, "If I do not succeed in understanding the avadanas of a bird, how could I understand all the dharmas? Now I know how far the knowledge of the Buddha extends. In order to possess such knowledge, I would be willing to fall into the Avicii hell and suffer torments for innumerable kalpas, and I would not consider that to be difficult." It is because he does not understand the dharmas of this kind that Sariputra asks questions. End chapter 16.